Though the fig tree does not bud, and there is no fruit on the vines, though the olive crop fails, and the fields produce no food, though the flocks disappear from the pen, and there are no herds in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord Adonai. I will rejoice in the Elohim of my salvation. Remember, no matter how bad it is, no matter how bad it's going to get, to always rejoice, because we are blessed to live in this time, and we are so fortunate to have a loving Savior, and to kind of know where we're going and what's going to happen, at least enough to get us through, folks. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. These riots in LA, they're getting much bigger. For those of you that may think it's just a small thing, there's certainly ample video out there showing tens of thousands, maybe hundreds, maybe well over 100,000 out there protesting, not just around the detention centers, which seems to be where the biggest amount of violence is happening, but they're taking to the highways and they're shutting down highways. This isn't just happening in LA. There's also protests starting up down in Houston, Texas. Right now, those do seem to be very peaceful, but the ones in LA have gotten quite violent. There's some video here that you can see where they're destroying police cars. They've been destroying electric vehicles in California and other places. They have these self-driving taxi cabs, they're not taxis, you know what I'm saying? And these self-driving electric vehicles will come and pick you up. They're calling those to have come and pick them up, and then they destroy them. There's looting going on. A couple, at least, police officers have been injured. Several bystanders have been injured. Several people involved in the rioting have been injured. Buildings are burning. I don't think it's quite to the level of the George Floyd riots, and certainly not the Rodney King, LA riots back then, but it is rapidly getting there, and it's growing very rapidly. Now, aside from the obvious of what's going on and why it's happening, I think that stepping back maybe quite a bit, I think all of this, yes, it's all been planned. This has been going on for years. I can remember a couple of years ago talking about the amount of illegals that were pouring in across the border that Biden was letting in. I said then something to the effect that I believe they were purposely allowing these people to come into the country so that at some point we will reach this breaking point to where the American people, start pushing back or start demanding that something change, or it's become so apparent that it's caused our society to start to crumble. And that was not the goal. That was a means to the end. That crumbling of society, that burden that it's putting on, the violence and the degradation and stuff, was only to open the doorway so that Big Brother could step in and fix everything. Oh, you don't like all of these illegals here? Well, here, we have this big mass surveillance system. That'll help. We have all of this digital tracking and AI and digital ID and social credit systems and facial recognition and all of that. If we implement all of these things, then we can fix the tens of millions of illegals, because there's too many now. There's too many in the country for law enforcement to handle. So now we have to implement all of this, very advanced surveillance system. I think that that's been a big goal in all of this. Yes, it is to tear the country down. It is to pull us apart. It is to water down our society and stuff. But I think a big part is to push us towards all of this. And in fact, in the last couple of days, there have been a lot of Trump supporters And when I say Trump supporters, and I'm not picking on Trump supporters, I'm saying this meaning that people on the right, there's conservatives, right? Conservatives that just a few years ago were complaining about Big Brother. You know, they've always been the ones warning about Big Brother. Well, now conservatives, and these are people, some of these I've seen online are ones that actually do have direct contact with the president, are now demanding for things like Palantir and their surveillance systems and their digital IDs and their cameras and everything, so that we can use that to round up not just the illegals, but all of these violent offenders that are out there rioting. And so the plan is starting to come full circle. We're also seeing that in places like England, where they have just allowed, tens of hundreds of thousands of illegals and migrants to come into the country. And then all of a sudden now they're like, oh, we got to stop this. We got to shut things down. We got to get them out. Well, the only way to control this society now from all the violence and everything that's happened, well, we got to have, this big surveillance system, which England already has, but they need more. They need more technology to kind of control the situation. So, stepping aside from the obvious things that are happening with this, I think that is one of the big goals, because like I said, we've got now conservatives demanding for China-style surveillance systems in the United States. Tracking systems, data collecting of people. And I guess you can say that part of their plan is actually taking effect, or is working out. I think that this is also, well, for one thing, and I'll if you don't know me, you should be able to figure out that people like Gavin Newsom, the governor there in California, I couldn't stand at all. I don't know him personally, but he is turning out to be, in a lot of people's minds, a hero. As crazy as that seems. And he's starting to take that banner. And there's a lot of people thinking that this could potentially lead to a type of civil war. Maybe not quite a full-blown civil war, but definitely a more violent breakdown in this country. And I could see that being a possibility. Already people are talking about the movie Civil War that came out, I believe it was last year or the year before, I think it was last year, and how this is starting to look eerily similar to that movie. The amount of people on the left that are, I've been surprised as vocal, not that they have been vocal, but as the things that they're saying. They're telling people to get out on the streets. They're telling them to riot and to protest, to do it peaceful, but to get out there and make your voices known. And they've been talking about how what the president is doing is so morally wrong. And, the calling up the National Guard, I think I'm okay with that, but I do see the other side of the argument a little bit. But now the Pentagon has stated that there's 500 Marines that are on standby, ready to go in and help. The state of California states that they've got this under control. They don't need National Guard help. Gavin Newsom has demanded that the president relinquish control of the California National Guard and put it back in the governor's control. The president of Mexico is calling on Mexicans in the United States to protest and to make matters worse. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that. And I'd said last week that I felt that this situation, not necessarily in California, but the rounding up and deportation was going to spark some major protests. Also, there's at least, from what I'm reading, at least 100 different organizations here in the United States. Many of these kind of sort of or like little terrorist organizations, Antifa being one of them, others that are just known to have violent connections and stuff, are planning on a big protest on June 14th, which is the big parade day in Washington, D.C. So you've got a bunch of military equipment moving to D.C. There's even a map. This is a map of the cities that are planned to have major protests in. Now, we saw maps like this during the BLM, George Floyd riots. This is becoming a bigger deal, and I think that I think it's just begun. I think we're also going to see the anti or the pro illegal anti deportation. I don't even know what they're calling it now. Protest rolled into also the pro Palestinian protests. So I think you're going to see those kind of merge together. California has right now, they've been reporting a lot of Muslims are now taking part in the riots and protests. So I think that this is going to expand, and in the next week or so, I think it's going to look very different. And the more the president pushes, and I'm not saying that he shouldn't, I'm just saying the more the president pushes with the National Guard and federal forces, I think the stronger the pushback. Could they eventually overwhelm the left and get this under control? Possibly, but I think it's going to take a lot of work, a lot more work than what most people anticipate. There is a deep divide and hatred in this country. And I think that there's a lot of people, or at least this is how they're spinning it to their supporters, that, we're in the corner. If we don't get out there and fight now, we're done. So that the situation there is getting worse, basically. I mean, I've said all that to just get to the point. And you should start preparing, because I suspect it's going to expand. Like I just showed you in that map. That's the map that they're planning on having protests in on June 14th because of the president's parade and everything. And it's so close to what's happening in California and Texas and a couple other places. It will all be rolled into one, I assure you. And there's a lot of dots on that map, so there's a chance that there's some that's kind of close to you. So you should be prepared for that. In international news, Russia has launched the largest drone attack on Ukraine since the start of the war. I mean, it's getting bigger there. What can I say? Things are spiraling out of control. European countries are more and more using stronger and stronger language on telling their people, their citizens, to prepare for World War III, that it is going to happen. And while that may not immediately directly affect us, if our country's in the middle of a somewhat sort of civil war, and we've got wars in other countries, and we've got trade wars going on, imports from China dropped by 35% this past month. And I know some of you say that's a great thing, but that is going to affect the economy. All of this stuff is starting to come together over the next few weeks and few months. I think that the country is going to look very different. I'm not saying it's the end. I'm not saying it's all in a massive collapse, but I think we're going to go through some pretty hard times. And even Donald Trump said that before he became president and shortly after. He warned that we're going to go through some hard times to get to where he wants us to be. Whether that'll work or not, who knows? But you need to be preparing very actively and very quickly. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.